The After the Affair podcast with me, Luke Shillings, is here to help you process, decide, and move forward on purpose following infidelity. Together, we'll explore what's required to rebuild trust not only in yourself, but also with others. Whether you stay or leave, I can help. And no matter what your story, there will be something here for you. Let's go. Hello and welcome back to the After the Affair podcast. I'm your host, Luke Shillings, and today you're listening to episode 180. If everything inside you feels loud right now, if your chest feels tight, if your thoughts won't slow down, if you wake up already exhausted from thinking, I want you to hear this. Everything you're experiencing is okay. You don't need to decide anything in this moment. Not about your relationship, not about whether you stay or leave, not about forgiveness, not about your future, nothing. And I'm going to say something that may just surprise you a little. If you weren't uncomfortable right now, that would concern me far more. After betrayal, your world doesn't just shift emotionally, it shifts physiologically. Your nervous system is on high alert, your body's scanning for danger, your mind is trying to predict the future so it can prevent more pain. Of course you feel unsettled, of course you feel restless, of course you feel the pressure to do something. Your system wants certainty, it wants safety, it wants resolution. But safety doesn't come from rushing a decision. Safety comes from regulation, and regulation doesn't look dramatic, it looks slow. One of the most destructive forces after betrayal is the belief that you must decide quickly. People are always asking, are you staying? Are you leaving? Have you forgiven them? Are you moving forward? And even if nobody is asking you externally, you are asking yourself internally because you want relief. And here's the truth that most people probably don't feel too comfortable saying out loud. The desire to decide is often just a desire to stop feeling uncomfortable. It's relief seeking. If I stay, at least I'll know. If I leave, at least I know. If I forgive, at least I can move on. If I end it, at least the uncertainty stops. But decisions made from emotional urgency are rarely aligned with your deeper values. They're aligned with your discomfort threshold, and they are not the same things. So let's talk about that word, stuck. Because I hear it constantly. I feel stuck. In fact, it's probably the most common challenge that people face when they first interact with me, when they reach out to look for further support. I'm not moving. I should be further by now. Why am I still here? But what if stuck is not stagnation? What if stuck is, incubation? Think about physical injury. If you tear a muscle, you don't sprint, you rest. If you've had surgery, you don't demand performance from your body, you allow repair. Emotional rupture is no different, but because it's invisible, we expect productivity, we expect momentum, we expect clarity, and when we don't have those things, we label ourselves as failing. You are not failing, you're recalibrating. Now, there's another layer here. Sometimes what we call movement is actually avoidance. Constantly researching, constantly analysing, constantly interrogating, constantly rehashing conversations, constantly imagining different features. It feels productive, but it's often nervous energy trying to outrun discomfort. Slowing down can feel like surrender, but it's actually courage. Because when you slow down, you can't hide from what's there. You feel it. You sit with it. You breathe through it. And that builds capacity. There's a phrase that sounds almost motivational. Growth is uncomfortable. When you're calm, you nod. When you're activated, you resist it. Because discomfort during betrayal doesn't feel like growth. It feels like chaos. But consider this. Every expansion in your life has required discomfort. Learning something new, having difficult conversations, setting boundaries, taking responsibility. leaving something familiar. Discomfort is not the enemy. Discomfort is the tuition fee. The mistake is believing discomfort means danger. And sometimes discomfort just means transformation. I remember very clearly a period where I couldn't see beyond the noise. Everything felt so urgent. Everything felt completely destabilized. And someone said to me, "You don't need to rush." That was it. That's all they said. You don't need to rush. And I didn't like hearing it, I've got to say. I remember hearing words and phrases like time is a great healer and time is the best healer. And this was just like a different version of that, which I didn't feel particularly comfortable with, probably because I equated stillness with weakness. I equated slowing down with failure. But they held something I couldn't hold at the time. That was perspective. They could see that my nervous system was hijacked, and even though they didn't necessarily have the language for that, they could see that I wasn't acting from a 30,000 foot view. I was zoomed in, focused on the problem. It was front and center in my mind, and I couldn't see anything else. They could see that clarity wasn't going to come from speed. They held the torch for me. Not to guide me out immediately, but to remind me that there was an out. At first, I believed that the strength was theirs, that the steadiness was external, that the hope belonged to them. But eventually something shifted. I realized that the steadiness was not actually being given to me, it was being reflected back to me. They weren't creating my strength, they were, reminding me of it. And slowly, without drama, I picked up the torch. Right now, you might think, I just need certainty, I just need clarity, I just need to know what to do. Give me the step-by-step instructions, Luke. But maybe what you actually need is the ability to sit without knowing. That is strength. The world celebrates decisive people, but wisdom rarely belongs there. Instead, it tends to belong to the regulated people. The ones who can say, "I don't know yet," and that's okay. So, instead of "I'm stuck," what if I'm stabilizing? Instead of "I should be further," what if I'm building depth? Maybe we could take, instead of "I need to decide," what if I need to integrate? You value growth. You wouldn't be listening to this podcast if you didn't. But growth is not always acceleration. Sometimes growth is containment. Sometimes growth is emotional endurance. Sometimes growth actually is restraint. Sounds counterintuitive, doesn't it? This week, when you feel the urgency rise, when you feel the pressure to fix, when you feel the discomfort screaming for relief, pause. Not to solve, not to analyze, just to notice. Take a moment now and just listen to yourself. Not the noise in your mind, what you can feel in your body. Just notice. Pause here if you wish. Ask yourself, if I didn't have to decide today, what would I do differently? If I trusted that clarity comes from regulation, what would slowing down look like? Maybe it's fewer conversations. Maybe it's fewer late night spirals. Maybe it's one honest sentence. I'm not ready to decide. There's strength in that. If you are uncomfortable right now, good. If you are unsettled, understandable. If you feel stuck, you're human. You do not need to be further along. You do not need to prove strength. You do not need to decide today. Slow down. Let your nervous system settle. Let your mind integrate and let the discomfort stretch you instead of scare you. And remember this, the torch you think someone else needs to hand you is already yours. You're just learning to hold it steadily. If you are in that space, activated, pressured, overwhelmed, and you need someone to temporarily hold that steadiness while you stabilize, this is exactly what coaching can provide. Not decisions, not pressure, but grounded support while you rebuild your own clarity. Visit lifecoachluke.com and book yourself a discovery call. Until next week, slow down. You're not stuck, you are becoming. Great to be here. I'll talk to you all very soon.